Right, Maui.
I could just pivot. I could
Yeah,
pivot
go
to
for
mine.
it.
It's a
Perfect.
perfect springboard. It's just about talent that's on a roster that's just not really gonna find opportunities in the upcoming season. I feel like reading Groove's interview with HLTV for was kind of like was a sobering realization that they're just not ranked high enough that they're going to get invites to practically any tournaments. And I really feel like I rate 4 of those players. Sure, the T sides are a bit weird right now, but I rate Boomich very highly as a captain. Again, like kind of circling back to the Cloud9 or the complexity aspect of morale. He's one of the best morale like just leaders
Sure.
in the Eastern European space. I compare him to people like Chopper or like Jame or whatever. It's like those teams when they're down and out, they look solemn. But like in a weird way, Cloud9 choked against complexity, sure, in a weird fashion, but like I never feel like the body language is as detrimental, and I always feel like Boomich is one of the best uplifting people around. Like in Heavy God's interview about Boomich too, he was just singing his praises about his attributes as a captain. And beyond that, I mean, Heavy God himself, obviously one of the sickest players out there right now that isn't on technically a top 30 team or top 20 team. And then Axile, sure, he isn't a top 5 rifler anymore, but also very proficient in role. Icy has grown on me a good amount. I actually didn't rate Icy going into this Cloud9 lineup. I was like, he's got a lot to prove to me. I feel like he's actually proved it. And I'd say the only obvious hindrance is interz. I just feel like I've talked a lot about interz and my problems with him as a player. I just feel like he's playing an antiquated style of trying to play for his life, buy time for rotations, but then he never even actually goes for the kill. And I just feel like that's so detrimental to what you need to do now in CS2, and just like you just need to get one. It's like I think even getting yours and dying is, depending on the situation, it is situational, of course, but I feel like that's never his option choice, so rarely at least. So I feel like this Cloud9 team was kind of in a weird way almost like they're better in LAN than they are online, because online they were just kind of dicking around. They were toiling around. Like at least they were able to accomplish the goal of making it to the major, but they didn't go far enough at the major to accrue enough points. And now thinking about them into the upcoming season, it's like they're almost doomed to just keep repeating this online gauntlet that is really not favoring them.
Yeah, I'm with you on the interz thing. Like, I think for some reason he seems like a bit of a like Reddit darling sometimes, and I think people are like, "Oh, dude, he's this guy who like he doesn't actually even get kills. He's just really smart. He just plays to live." And like I think that was true in the past, but now I watch it and it's like, no, it doesn't work in the same way. It is bad, especially when obviously like Perfecto was here, and you're just like, "Oh, cool." So we just don't have that, I guess. Like, brilliant. And also like, I don't see the full context, but I was looking up the Groove quote afterwards where he was like, "Oh, well, I think he admitted it wasn't a great result, but then he was like, oh, but I guess if you compare it to the other teams in the region, I guess it's a really good result in terms of Astralis, Eternal Fire, and other teams that didn't even qualify." And I'm like,
that's wild, isn't it?
Okay, that seems like copium a little bit. Like, just focus on yourself, maybe, and don't just like try and make yourself seem better. I guess the only thing is like they didn't really have that many online games even leading into this. They actually didn't get to play too much. So I also think like Heavy God, he's clearly good, but I think he was in this stage like a little worse than I normally expect from him. So like I think that there's things that can go well with time with this roster, but yeah, it is a scenario where it's like it is disappointing. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you just give this team time. I guess you do, but it's...
I mean, everyone doesn't want them to. Here's the problem. They also have that classic concept that I came up with years ago. I actually originally invented it, if you remember, for like G2 when they made the Alexi B swap and brought Monacy in. I always said the reason I think they kicked Alexi B so quickly, it was like 7 months or something, is because at the time, because G2 hadn't won in years and years, the perspective from fans was, well, the climber doesn't start with Alexi B. The timer was still running from years before. So it's like the momentum of not winning is crazy. And I think they have the same problem in this team. It's not just this lineup. It's that Cloud9's been underwhelming coming for so long since they lost Chiro last year that basically people are still waiting for them to be good again. The reason this one burns me so much, Maui, is if you remember on this exact show when they made this roster, I did actually say I thought it was actually a solid roster. I thought it was pretty underrated. I looked at like the roles they all fit. I even think there's no real overlap in like strength of the stars. I think even it's a pretty shrewdly done roster. Like remember, one thing a lot of people forgot was we all look at the Israeli flag of Heavy God and the whole topic was like he should play with Flames and speak. No, it turns out because he's fucking like can speak Russian, actually he can be in all the fucking amazing CIS teams potentially. Like he actually had like mad like a potential free agents, like let's say agency with where he could move. Let's say it that way, right? So the thing that I think sucks is this: a pleb can go, "Ha, you were wrong," and it's like, no. If you just listen to what we just said, I actually think it sounds like you guys are on board. I actually think it's the opposite. On paper, this was actually not a badly GM team. This looked like if I was doing not the like giant budget team, this looks fairly shrewd. Like if you don't know, the Icy guy was like an up and comer. He just needed to test himself. That's actually been really good. If you don't know, he's the best player. Heavy God is good. He's had a few months where it was a little bit hard to acclimatise to this squad, but he's clearly a good player. Axile, look, he's not the Axile from CSGO. Forget that for now and you'll be okay. Like Maui said, if you just view him as like fucking aggressive rifler, he is good. He's still actually good at the game. He's not terrible. Boomich is the IGL and does his job. I agree on the interz one. Look, here's the problem interz has. It's a very simple one. I actually think that might be the type of player that has been eliminated by CS2. And by the way, this happened in CSGO. Famously, when those two elite 1.6 teams switched to CSGO, Na'Vi and Virtus Pro, not Virtus Pro, the people who became Virtus Pro, the Poles, they switched with their 1.6 rosters and they had the two most famous interz style players. They had Senya on Na'Vi and they had Lord B, you know that guy, he was on the Polish team. And famously, those two in 1.6, it was just like we're talking about with these players. It wasn't about they had to get frags. They would just do things like space create, when you were clutch, just like fucking play for time, play with no weapons, play the util game. And that used to be enough, by the way, that you could win the game because you had Neo or you had fucking Markov or something. The problem we found in CSGO was even like the supportive element had to frag a bit. You know, that's why actually you got the opposite in CSGO. You had these amazing supports that over the Zipnikses, NBKs, you had the ones that like Perfecto at the end. He could, if you don't know, Perfecto could put up a 1.1 rating and be the fourth best player on Na'Vi. Like, it was bonkers. That's why that lineup might be one of the greatest of all time that sadly was halted early. So the problem I think you have is this. The difference is, Perfecto does all the same things interz can do, but he can also frag people, and he looks like he has confidence in the way interz doesn't. So unfortunately, interz is the obvious one that didn't really make it. But I still think, opposite to the VP one, when I look at this one, I look at like you, Walker, and I go, this isn't even a bad lineup, though. It's actually not bad. And again, people even kind of frag the way you'd want to. It's just somehow as a unit, it hasn't done it. Like, the worst thing about this team is it just doesn't win games. Like I say, I don't even think people have like ruined their career by going here. I actually think, by the way, the Icy guy obviously should be on a better team one day. Heavy God probably will be on like a G2 one day. Fucking Axel could probably be in another. He could be a VP or something if he wants. Like, most of these players, you can reclaim them. It's just something's gone wrong with this squad. It's actually one of those ones where it's just a bit sad. Like, I actually don't think it was a badly put together squad. I like it. I think it's sort of legit. Well, let me think. Oh, there's one last thing I'll say is this as well. At the time they did form this squad was when there was all those rumours, like that famous leak from like the literal Ancor guy, who was like the friend of Monacy, that like maybe Monacy would consider this team. Well, there's the other killer, right? Because you look at this roster, if you really did put Monacy instead of Icy, mate, you would cook with this team. You could be really good. Like, the roles again fit. Like, this wouldn't be a bad squad. I think it'd actually be a very good squad potentially. At that point, Axel really only does have to be your third best, and you'd have the best player in the world, in my opinion. So, and also one last thing that gives away what I just said, that this is a team of good players that isn't that good, is, bro, their CT side fragging is really big numbers, by the way. When it's only skill and they just play off their own ability with the crosshair, they can fucking shoot people. They're not bombs, but something obviously just isn't working with like the unit on T side. For me, the part people miss is T side's where you have to be the machine. See, T side's about things like, do we have someone who makes a good call? Do we have our egos in check? Do we play off it? They actually seem to do that quite well. It's why the big bomber, like I say, to bring it all the way back to the beginning is, I get it. If you're a C9 fan, one, you want to cheer for NA players, and two, this team isn't elite. That was the only option in which it's okay to, if you want Team Liquid or C9 to not be NA, then they better be one of the best teams in the world, because then people can accept it. They go, right, okay, but it's like me being a fan of Liverpool if everyone's not from Liverpool. Like, I want them to win, obviously, that's fine. But then if we were like 13th and no one's from, what we do at that point in time, we're just a bad team, aren't we? We're a shit super team.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.